Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about some of the books I've been reading. I want to start incorporating more videos about books into my channel because that's definitely a passion of mine. So if you guys have any good book suggestions, definitely leave them down in the comments, and any like requests of types of videos you want from me about books, if you guys are interested, definitely let me know. And if you guys want to see what I've been reading, then just keep watching. So the first book I read actually last month was The Unbecoming of Dyer, and this is pretty popular, I'd say, around booktube, and it's basically about this girl that deals with like a really bad accident, and she wakes up in a hospital and has no idea. So anyways, my battery died, of course, but this is basically a book about this girl that like is in a bad accident with her friends, and she wakes up and doesn't remember like what happened at all, and one of her friends actually is killed in the accident, her best friend. And so like all through the book they end up like, her family ends up moving and to start over, and she goes to this like prep school and meets this guy, and it's weird because he ends up like knowing like kind of what happened with her, so and they end up really liking each other. But I don't want to like give too much away and like spoil it for you, but I definitely would say to pick this up and read it. I read it really fast for it being like, I think it's about like almost 500 pages, so it's a pretty decent sized book. But it caught me like right from the beginning when I started reading this. I love these type of like, this is definitely a YA book, and I mean there is some parts that are kind of cheesy in it with like the whole romance thing and everything, but it was different from anything I've ever read, and I really enjoyed that. And it definitely keeps you like, I could not put this down. So there's actually, I think there's 3 books in this maybe, so I'm gonna definitely want to pick up the second and third one and keep reading it. But I really enjoyed this, and if you're into this type of thing, it's kind of like, I would say it's sci-fi sort of, there's a little bit of that in it, then I would definitely pick this up. So that's that one. And then after that, I just finished this the other day. This is called Uninvited, and this is by Sophie Jordan. This is about a girl, I'm assuming, they don't really ever say, but I'm assuming this is kind of like in the future. And they have this whole thing called a homicidal tendency syndrome, and it's the kill gene. And they test people for it, and if you're tested positive for it, basically like you could be like a normal person, which is how she is, and they just predict that you're gonna end up like killing someone eventually. And they treat you a lot different after that. Like, you're not allowed to go back to school. Everyone, it's weird because she's kind of like, I kind of relate to her a little bit. She's like quiet and doesn't really, she's not a bad person or anything, but she ends up testing positive for this gene, and after that like her friends in school find out and don't want anything to do with her because they all think she's gonna end up killing them and stuff, and it's pretty crazy. And so they end up making her go to a different school for people that have this, and they're basically like locked in a room and can't do anything. And she ends up meeting this guy Sean, and starts to like him, of course, and that whole thing. But it gets really serious like towards the middle of the book when I guess the government decides that this gene is like kind of like really messing with the US, so they want to like take all of these people that have this and like confine them into a camp or something to get them away, and she ends up getting sent away for that. But what I really loved about this book is, yeah, we don't have this type of thing, but I mean, I feel like it could eventually, like, who knows, in the future this could be a thing. It's not really that unrealistic, but I really enjoyed how at the end the author, where's that? She basically puts how, like, she wrote this book to kind of, like, have people be able to relate to, like, what's going on in the world and make people realize that, like, you shouldn't assume stuff about people and to stop violence, which is very prevalent to what's going on right now. So I really enjoyed that, and this again is a series. I'm not sure, I think there's definitely one other book, but I'm not sure how many are in this series, so I'm definitely going to pick it up and read it. I mean, it wasn't the best book I've ever read, and it did get kind of slow in some parts, and I kind of wanted to, like, pick it up and finish it, but for the most part it was pretty good, and I liked how it ended. It kind of definitely carries, like, makes you want to keep reading this, so definitely pick this up if you guys are interested in this type of thing. I heard about this through Canon Nicholson, I think is how you say her last name, on YouTube. She did a video about books she's been reading and talked about this, but she said, I guess the second book is really good, a lot better than this one. I've seen that on Goodreads. A lot of people were reviewing that one and saying it was really good, so I'm definitely interested in reading the second one and see what happens. So and then I finished this like 2 weeks ago, I think, and this was like my favorite thing I've read so far these past couple months, and this is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. This is a classic. I'm sure if you're into either Stephen King or like horror stuff, you've definitely probably heard of this. It's been out for a while, and there's a movie adaptation of it. That's actually, I saw that first, like, it's been a while with my dad, and I was younger, so I didn't really, like, understand fully, like, what was going on, but it definitely, I remember being, like, really terrified after watching it. So I picked this one up at, like, I think a thrift store last year maybe, for like really cheap, and I started it in the summer and then I put it down and stopped reading. I started it like probably 2 or 3 times before this time, and I finally like dove into it and read it, and I really enjoyed it. As usual, I mean, I feel like this happens with me with a lot with Stephen King's books. Like, I felt this way about The Shining, and that's another one that's like one of his classics. I started it, and like the beginning just didn't really catch me to want to keep reading it, but then like once I finally started it and like kept going and you get further into the story, you definitely get sucked in and you want to keep reading it and find out what happens. And that's exactly what happened with this. It's very creepy, and there'd be times I'd be reading it at night and before bed and get kind of creeped out with it, which usually doesn't happen with me. I don't really get scared of stuff that easily, but I feel like with this it's a little more like realistic than, like, I don't know, some of these that are like really far-fetched about like monsters or something, which would probably never happen, but this I feel like could possibly happen. So but it's obviously basically about a pet cemetery. This couple and their kids move into this house, and there's a guy that lives across the road that they kind of befriend, and he tells them about this pet cemetery that's up like this little hill where they live, and it's basically where all of the neighborhood kids have buried their pets that have died. And as you get further into the story, you kind of see that, I mean, it's not just a cemetery, like these animals can come back to life and haunt you, which is very creepy. And there's something that happens with the kid in this book, which really kind of, it bothered me a little bit. That was creepy, but this was definitely, I would say, probably my favorite Stephen King book I've read so far, so it definitely was a really good book, and I flew through this. It's almost like 400 pages, so not too bad, but I feel like any of Stephen King's books I've read so far, you get sucked into his world and you want to keep finding out what happens with these characters, and you just get so lost in his books, and that is like my favorite feeling in the world when reading. So if you've never really gotten into Stephen King, I would definitely suggest reading this first to kind of like get yourself introduced with him. It's definitely a really good book, and I'm thinking about rewatching the movie here soon to kind of compare the two, which I'm sure the book's definitely better than the movie, but yeah, this was really, really good. And then, again with Stephen King, this I'm currently reading right now, and it's called Joyland, and this came out in 2013, so it's like kind of newer, but I saw this a while ago in like a bargain bookstore or something, and it really caught my eye, like the cover, because it was like old-fashioned looking, and but I never like picked it up just because, I don't know, it wasn't one of his like most popular books, and I wasn't really sure if it was like what it was about or anything. But I recently got into, her name's Emily Kate, I think, on YouTube, and she's not super big, but she's a booktuber, and she's really into Stephen King like I am, and she talked about this and said it was really, really good, and I like had to go get it. So I picked this up Sunday, and I'm like a decent way into it, and I'm really, really liking it. Just like she said in her video about this, I mean, the story is definitely interesting, but what more so like catches me is just the way he describes stuff in this. Like, you really feel like you're there in this amusement park, and like, I don't know, it's just crazy how he describes stuff, and it just really like brings you to where that is, and I'm really liking it so far. And this one's definitely a shorter one. It's only like 200 some pages, so I'm probably gonna be finished with this pretty soon, but it's definitely really good. It's not one of his more well-known books. I've never really heard of it before this, but it's definitely one you should pick up if you're into, like, it's kind of like a carnival amusement park type of thing, and there's like a ghost haunting it, which to me creeps me out because I'm not really, they just really creep me out. So this is probably going to scare me, but I really like that. So definitely check this one out too if you've never heard of it or heard about it. If you're into that type of thing, it's definitely a really good book so far. So that is all of the books I've been reading this past 2 months. Like I said, I definitely want to get into more like book related videos. I'm really into books, so I love being able to talk about it. And if any of you guys are, definitely, if you have any suggestions for books for me to read, let me know. Or any type of like book related videos that you want me to do, tell me. It's just, it feels good to be able to talk about stuff that I really enjoy, because, you know, makeup's interesting, but that's definitely not all of what I enjoy, and I actually kind of get more excited talking about like books or music than I do with makeup. So hopefully that'll carry over into my videos and you guys really like them. So I think that's it. So I'll talk to you guys later, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.